So this is our last lesson of chapter 3, and it is 3.6. It's about converting measurements. Could I have a volunteer read our learning target for us where it says LT right underneath the title? Yeah.
I can use ratio reasoning to convert units of measurement.
Thank you. So a few definitions. The U.S. customary system is a system of measurement that contains units for length, capacity, and weight. The metric system is a decimal system of measurement based on powers of 10 that contains units for length, capacity, and mass. So we use the U.S. customary system. Make sure we're not whispering during the lesson because that would not be respectful. And the metric system is used by most of the rest of the world. There's like a couple other countries that use our customary system, but most countries use the metric system. So the customary system has things like feet, yards, miles, cups, quarts, those types of things. And the relationships between all of them are very different, right? There's 12 inches in a foot, there's 3 feet in a yard. Like it's kind of all over the place with how many of one unit are within another unit. In the metric system, everything is very, the relationship between everything is the same. So if you want to go up a unit, right, if you're going from centimeters to meters, there's 100 in a meter. Like that. Wait, you can't see it. And then in 1 centimeter, there's 10 millimeters. In 1 kilometer, there's 1,000 meters. So you can see everything is based on powers of 10, right? Everything is increasing or decreasing by a power of 10, whereas in the customary system, it's all very different. So today we're going to talk about how to not only convert measurements within a system, but between the two systems. So if you're driving in Canada and you're coming from the US, right, our speedometer is going to talk about miles per hour, but you go up to Canada and now it's kilometers. So thinking about how to go between the two different systems as well. So first one says convert 36 quarts to gallons. So 36 quarts is what I'm working with. QT is how we abbreviate for quarts. And the way I'm going to convert this is by using something called a conversion factor, and that is what is on this other paper that you've been given. So here is a ton of conversion factors, ones within the customary system, within the metric system, and then between the two systems as well. So we need to find a conversion factor that compares quarts to gallons. Does anybody see that anywhere on their conversion factor paper? Something that talks about quarts and gallons. Quarts and gallons. Logan? Right there. Gallons, quarts. 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. So this is the piece of information I need to know to be able to convert it, right? Because if I'm going from quarts to gallons, I need to know the relationship between the two things. So now that I know the conversion factor I'm using, what I'm going to do is multiply this amount by this conversion factor. I'm going to set it up like a fraction. The way I set it up is I want to make sure that the unit that I'm starting with, quarts, goes on the bottom of the conversion factor, and the unit that I want to turn it into goes on the top. So gallons goes on the top. Then I can fill in the numbers from that conversion factor. So it said 1 gallon is 4 quarts. So 1 gallon, 4 quarts. So it's kind of like I'm multiplying fractions here. If I want to multiply these fractions, what can I put underneath something that's just like a whole number? What can I put underneath it to make it a fraction? Juliana? Okay, now I'm ready to multiply. Here is why I wanted the quarts, the unit I started with, to be diagonal from the other one, because I'm going to use the idea of cross-canceling. These two measurements, these two units, they're both quarts. They are going to cross-cancel with one another so that the only unit left is gallons, and that was the whole goal, is I wanted this to be in gallons. Now I'm going to look at the numbers to see if there's any cross-canceling with the numbers as well. Is there any cross-canceling? The ones aren't going to get smaller, but what about 36 and 4? Is there something that goes into both of those, Farhan?
Yes.
So this would become a 9 because 4 goes into it. Yep, and then that would become a 1. That means when I multiply across the top, I get 9 times 1 gallon 9 gallons, and across the bottom, 1 times 1, which is 1. So what is my answer here? How many, if I change 36 quarts into gallons, how many gallons is it? Lysandra?
What? 9 gallons.
9 gallons. Done. I know this probably seems a little bit funky. We're going to just keep practicing it, so please do not panic if you're like, oh, this is confusing. Okay, I'm going to try another one. This time it says convert 10 meters to feet. So again, I need to find a conversion factor that compares meters and feet. So does anybody see on this paper a conversion factor that compares meters to feet or feet to meters? Either way, but we have to have those two things. Feet and meters. I want you to look at your paper. So everybody look at their own paper. So you shouldn't be looking at me. Look at your paper that's on your desk that looks like this. See if you can find one that has meters and feet, because that's what we're looking for. Meters and feet. Swara? Oh, right there. 1 foot. Do you guys see how that equal sign is not really an equal sign? It's like a little bit squiggly. So this is not an equal sign. It's a sign that means approximately. So what this means is that 1 foot is approximately or about 0.3 feet. That just means we need to remember when we get our answer that our answer isn't going to be exact, but it's going to be approximate. So when I get my answer, instead of using an equal sign, I'm going to use that same squiggly symbol. So if that's the symbol that's in my conversion factor, that's the symbol I'm going to use in my answer. So I'm going to write this down on my paper so I don't forget. 1 foot is approximately 0.3 meters. Did anybody see another one that compared feet and meters? Hudson? Oh, okay. And that one says 1 meter is about 3.28 feet. I'm going to write that one down too. So it's kind of like I have two choices here. They both tell me the relationship between meters and feet. So I can use either one of them. Depending on which one you use, you might end up getting a slightly different answer. Because again, if these are estimates or approximations, because our answers are approximations, they might be slightly different approximations. So just be aware that if you're like, wait, me and my friend got slightly different answers, could be because you used the different conversion factors, and that's okay. So now we're going to set up our problem. So we're going to start with 10 meters. And I want to multiply it by a conversion factor. Remember, in this conversion factor, I'm going to put meters and I'm going to put feet. Am I going to put meters on the top or am I going to put meters on the bottom? Farhan?
Meters to the bottom.
Because I want it to be diagonal from the other meters so that they can go away. Because I don't want my answer to be in meters. I want it to be in feet. So that's why feet's going to go on the top. Now here's where we're going to do a little bit of thinking. Which of these do you think is going to be easier to use in this case? Remember, we can put a 1 underneath this too if that helps you think about it a little bit more. Do you think it's going to be easier to put 1 foot there and 0.3 meters there, or to put 1 meter on the bottom and 3.28 feet on the top? Which one would maybe make this a slightly easier problem? Aubrey? Putting the 1 foot on the top and the 0.3 meters on the bottom. I actually personally think it would be easier to do the other one. And this is because cross-canceling 10 with like a 0.3, we couldn't really do that. So we would end up with a fraction that's like 10 over 0.3, which is kind of funky. If I use the one that has a 1 on the bottom like that, 3.28 feet there to 1 meter, that means the bottom number is just going to be 1, and that's preferable to me. So that's why I'm going to use that one. But it doesn't matter which one you use. It's up to you. All right, my problem is set up. We're going to start cross-canceling. Remember, the meters and the meters cross-cancel with one another, making them go away. And that's the only cross-canceling I can do. There's no numbers here that are going to cross-cancel. So now I'm ready to just multiply straight across. Remember to use the squiggly equal sign because our conversion factors have that. That's what I should be using in my answer. On the top, 10 times 3.28 is 32.8 feet. Because remember, it had feet. And on the bottom, 1 times 1 is just 1. What does that mean my answer is? If I convert 10 meters into feet, how many feet does it become? How many feet does it become? I want to call on someone I haven't called on yet today. If I'm converting 10 meters to feet, how many feet does it turn into? Dash? And again, notice I use the little squiggly equal sign to say it's not exactly 32.8 feet, but it's pretty darn close. Questions about example 2? Okay, again, if you're like, this is still confusing, it's okay. The more practice you get, the easier it will become. So now down here is where we have our definition of conversion factor, but that's something we've already been using. Again, a conversion factor just compares the relationship between two things, so it sets them equal to one another, like saying that 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. So two measurements that are equal to one another, but they're measured in different units. And that we can set it up as a fraction like this, like we did in the first two examples to help us convert measurements. So now we're moving on to this one, pounds to kilograms. So again, you need to look at your paper and you need to find one that relates pounds and kilograms. Does anybody see one that talks about pounds and kilograms? And if you do see one, where is it? Aaron? Okay. So 1 pound, LB is the abbreviation for pound. I know that seems weird, but it is approximately 0.45 kilograms. Was there another one on there that we could have used if we wanted, Emmeline? Yes. So remember, there's always, not always, but on a lot of these, there's going to be 2 different options. And it's up to you which one you prefer to use. I'm just writing both so you can see that there's those 2 choices. And Emmeline reminded us that this means approximately. So these are not exact conversions, but they are pretty close. That means depending on which one you use, you and a neighbor could get slightly different answers if you use different conversion factors, but they should be pretty close. All right, we're going to set it up. So I start with 4 pounds. That's my starting amount. What can I put underneath the 4 pounds to put it into a fraction or turn it into a fraction? What can go underneath anything to turn it into a fraction? Emma? So all I've done is say, this is where I'm starting. I'm starting at 4 pounds. Now I'm going to multiply it by a conversion factor. So I'm drawing my fraction bar, and now I'm going to put in my 2 units. My starting units, pounds, and my units I want, kilograms. Let's start with pounds. Where should I put pounds? Should I put it on the top next to the other pounds, or should I put it on the bottom, diagonal from it? Where should it go? Next to or diagonal from? If you're not sure, look back at the other couple examples and see where we put them. Logan? Diagonal. So then what unit is supposed to be going on the top? If I put pounds down here, diagonal from pounds, my starting unit, what unit goes on the top? Aubrey? The unit I'm changing it into. Okay, now here's where we have to decide which of the conversion factors we want to use. Do we want the 1 to be on the top, or do we want the 1 to be on the bottom? What do you think would be easier? Having a 1 on the top or having a 1 on the bottom? Farhan? I agree, because 1 times 1 will make the denominator 1, and I think that's easier to work with. So if I choose to put a 1 next to pounds, which number goes next to kilograms? If I'm choosing to write 1 pound, what number goes up there? Dash? Yes, because I need to choose the conversion factor that talks about 1 pound and see how many kilograms it is. If I had put the 1 on top instead, that'd be fine. We would just need to remember that meant a 2.2 would be going on the bottom, but I prefer to have the 1 on the bottom. All right, remember to use the squiggly equal sign before we write our answer because these conversion factors are approximate, which means our answer is approximate. The pounds and the pounds cross cancel, making them go away. And then I have no numerical cross canceling. There's no numbers I can cross cancel, so I'm just going to multiply straight across. 4 times 0.45 kilograms is 1.8 kilograms. 1 times 1 is 1. So if I convert 4 pounds to kilograms, how many kilograms do I get when I convert it? When I convert 4 pounds to kilograms, how many kilograms is it equal to? Aaron? Huh? 1.8 kilograms. It's approximately 1.8 kilograms. Remember, if you did it with the other conversion factor, you might get a slightly different answer. Farhan?
I did not understand how you got to 1.8 kilograms.
Because 4 times 0.45 kilograms is 1.8.
So if you just multiply it like step, would you get the answer?
Yes. Yep. And we're going to talk more about that piece in a minute. But yeah, because you're right. I didn't show my work for that. I just knew what it was. That's because I did it in a calculator, and you guys are going to be able to use calculators for this because if you ever did this in your job, like if you ever had a job where this is something you would do, you would be using a calculator. You wouldn't be doing it by hand. Yeah. Okay, we have one more to do. Last one says convert 5 yards per second to yards per minute. So this one's a little bit different. I don't just have a single measurement that I'm converting. I actually have like a rate, yards per second. So instead of writing just 5 yards and then over 1, I'm going to put 5 yards over 1. Does anybody know what I'm going to label this 1 that's underneath it? 5 yards over 1 what? Fabian? Huh? Not minute. That's what I want it to turn into, but it's not in yards per minute right now, Neil. Because that's what it is right now. Because I'm always writing down my starting amount. And so I'm starting at 5 yards in 1 second, 5 yards per second. So which unit am I trying to change? Am I trying to change the yards or am I trying to change the seconds? What does the problem ask me to do? Grayson? Yeah, so yards is getting totally left alone. I'm changing the seconds and I'm changing it into minutes. So I need a relationship between minutes and seconds. Does anybody see on their conversion factor paper a conversion factor between minutes and seconds? Kaden?
1 minute and 60 seconds.
Okay. 1 minute equals 60 seconds. And that's one that you may have already known, so that you may not need to look at your paper for that. If you need to, totally fine. But the other ones, like I wouldn't have remembered that 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. That's why you have this paper. So I know I need to multiply it by a conversion factor. Remember, I'm trying to change the seconds. That's what I want to go away. I want seconds to go away, and I want to replace it with minutes. So should I put seconds on the top, diagonal from the other seconds, or should I put it on the bottom next to the other seconds? Dash? Yes, because the whole point is I want the seconds to go away, and that can only happen if they're diagonal, if I'm able to cross cancel. So I know in all the other ones we put it on the bottom, but we put it on the bottom so that it would be diagonal. In this case, since the thing we're changing is on the bottom, I put it on the top. That means I'm going to put minutes on the bottom. Now I can fill in my conversion factor. 1 minute, so I'm putting 1 next to minutes, is equal to 60 seconds, so I put 60 on the top next to seconds. Remember, the seconds and the seconds are going to cross cancel with one another, and then there's no numerical cross canceling, so I'm ready to multiply straight across. 5 times 60, 5 yards, times 60 is 300 yards. 1 times 1 minute is 1 minute. That means my final answer, if I'm converting 5 yards per second to yards per minute, what would I be able to write? That's my final answer. Farhan?
300 what?
There's a little more we got to add to that, not just 300 yards. It said convert 5 yards per second to yards per minute. So what am I missing on the end of this? Copy on? Per minute. Mia?